Hey, welcome back to KC Academy. My name is Lewis, and in today's video I'm going to teach you how to construct and how to use basic passive sentences. Alright, let's get to it. So first of all, you need to know what a passive sentence is. Okay, and what is a passive sentence? What does the word passive mean? Well, when we talk about a passive sentence, we're referring to a clause in which the subject does not carry out the action. Okay, instead, the subject receives the action. That's why we say it is passive. All right? When the subject, in regular sentences, when the subject carries out the action, we say it's an active subject in an active sentence. However, in a passive sentence, we talk about passive subjects because it receives the action. For example, if we read the sentence, the house was built in 1955, the house here does not carry out the action. Okay, as we can see here, the house does not build anything. However, it is built, so it is a passive sentence. In this context, the house is the passive subject, and the verb was built is actually a past simple passive, as we will see further on in a minute. More examples of passive sentences include, for instance, the book was written during the war. Okay, the book was written, and we're not specifying the subject, or the agent, in this case, the person, the writer who wrote the book. And another example, the criminal has been spotted in the streets of New York. Right? The criminal has been spotted, has been seen in the streets of New York. So it's not the criminal who sees, but the criminal has been seen. So that means that other people have seen him or her. So when do we use passive structures? All right, this is it's important to understand when we use them. Normally, we talk about passive structures, or we use passive structures when the object of the action is more important than the subject. For instance, in the previous sentence, the criminal has been spotted in New York. It's more important to emphasize the criminal than the people who saw the criminal, who spotted the criminal. Right? Also, we can use the passive when we don't know who did the action, like in this sentence. Maybe we don't know who spotted the criminal. Maybe it was the police. Maybe it was just passerby. So a passerby, sorry. So yeah, we would just omit the person who spotted the criminal, and we would place the criminal at the beginning in order to emphasize the passive subject. Also, we use the passive structure when it's obvious who is the active subject. For example, if we talk about a house that was painted, okay, the house was painted in white, it's obvious that, that it was a painter who painted the house, right? So you don't need to say the house was painted by the painter. We would just omit the agent there. Or it would be quite silly to say the painters painted the house yesterday, right? Some examples for in the active, we would say the company employs 200 people, but if we want to emphasize that it's 200 people, we could say that 200 people are employed by the company. In this example, we are emphasizing 200 by using the passive, or 200 people by using the passive. And we are mentioning the company, all right, but it's just at the end as the agent. Another example, in the active, the mechanic fixed my car yesterday. But because it's obvious that cars are fixed by mechanics, I would just say my car was fixed yesterday. And I would just omit the mechanic there. In this example, it is obvious that that it was the mechanic who fixed the car, so we can use the passive structure. And this might be the most important question, is how do we construct passive sentences? And it might seem a little complicated at first, but it's actually really, really simple. So all pure passive sentences are constructed in the same way. And I say pure because there are other passive structures that don't follow this particular structure, okay, or this particular construction process. But as I say, all pure passive sentences are constructed like this. We use the verb to be, and then we add the past participle. Okay, remember that the past participle in regular verbs are verbs ending in ed, whereas in irregular verbs is what we usually call the third column. All right. So, for example, if we talk about I don't know, become, an irregular verb, you'd say become, became, become. So the third column would be become. All right. Let's carry on. So we conjugate the verb to be. Okay, conjugate means that we put the verb in a particular tense, all right, the past simple, present perfect, whatever, and we add the past participle of the main verb. For example, an active sentence would be the company employs 200 people. So the verb here is employs, and it's in the present simple. And the passive sentence would be 200 people are employed by the company. And the tense of are employed is actually a present simple passive. So we have the verb to be in the present simple, because employs is in the present simple, and then we've added the past participle of employ, which is employed. More examples. Well, no, actually, I'm going to explain the step-by-step process to transform from active to passive, just so you get a clear idea of how we do this, although in fact it's done very, very easily and quickly. So first we need to find the verb in the active sentence. In this sentence that we're using as an example, the verb is employs. Then we need to identify the tense. As we said earlier, employs is present simple. Then we find the subject and the object. Okay, and this is really, really important, because if we have a subject but we don't have an object, we can't have a passive structure, right? Because the object in the active is going to be the subject in the passive, right? So the verb needs to be transitive, and this means that that it can carry an object, all right? So the company is the subject, employs 200 people, and 200 people would be the object. Then we need to change the subject for the object, as I just said earlier. So we change 200 people for the company, and we put the verb to be in the right tense, as we said earlier as well. In this case, it's the present simple, so 200 people are. Now we need to add the past participle to that verb to be. Okay, we need to add the past participle of the main verb, which in this case was employ. So 200 people are employed. And finally, we can add the agent by using the preposition by if it's necessary. And we can also add the other elements if there are any. In this case, 200 people are employed by the company. All right, so that's the process. I think it's pretty simple, but I just divided it into steps so you can understand exactly what's happening when transforming from active to passive. So let's check out more examples. In the active, for example, they're talking about a new development plan. So they are talking about a new development plan. We have the subject is they, and here we have a preposition, and we have a new development plan. That would be the object. And they are talking is the verb, okay? The main verb is talk, and this is in the present continuous. So we're going to need the present continuous of the verb to be, and then the past participle of talk. So we would say a new development plan is being talked about. In this case, we would leave the preposition at the end next to the verb that it goes with, as it's a dependent preposition. Then, the hotel staff told us lunch would start at 2 o'clock. The hotel staff, subject, told, verb in the past simple. Us is the object, and the rest are just some complements. So, in the passive, we would change us, we would use it as the subject, so we need to change it to we, because us is an object pronoun, whereas we is a subject pronoun. We were told, okay, past simple of the verb to be, because told is in the past simple. And then we have the past participle, which is the same, okay, tell, told, told. So we were told lunch would start at 2 o'clock. And here, because it's clear in the context of the sentence, it might be clear that we're at a hotel, so we would just omit the hotel staff. We wouldn't need to use it there. Another one, all the critics have praised his work. Okay, all the critics have praised his work. All the critics, subject, have praised, verb in the present perfect, and his work would be the object. So we would need the present perfect of the verb to be. Okay, that would be have been or has been, depending on the subject. In this case, the subject is going to be his work. So we would say his work has been praised by all the critics. Okay? So I think that's pretty much it. And there's not much else to say. So thank you very much for watching. If you like this, don't forget to share and subscribe. And until next time, don't forget to keep smiling. Bye-bye.